This is episode number 2 with Dave Schmitz.
Bands are non-gravity dependent. So now we can start training the body to get stronger, faster, more agile, more balanced, more coordinated, portability and unlimited resistance, and being able to train anywhere, anytime. We've barely tapped into the power of training with bands.
What's up? Welcome back to Anchors of Health. I'm your host, Bill Choi of anchorsofhealth.com, and today's episode under the movement anchor is all about resistance band training with Dave, the bandman Schmitz. He's a physical therapist, strength and conditioning coach, and the world's leading expert in resistance band training. He was one of the first to really educate trainers, athletes, and fitness enthusiasts on how to use bands effectively. I remember way back, a lot of top coaches in the fitness industry were saying, you got to see what Dave can do with bands. And I remember thinking, it's just a band. What's the big deal? But when I actually looked into what he was doing, I was blown away by all the things you could do with it. And I guarantee you all will be too. And the reason I wanted to bring him on the show so badly is because a lot of you out there are struggling to find time to work out. With the long work day and all the other things you got to do in your life, you don't always have the convenience of going to the gym. Some of you even travel a lot. So this is a great training tool that you can do in your own home or take with you wherever you go. You can train strength, cardio, flexibility, just about anything you want with it. And we get into all of this stuff. So let's just dive right in. Without further ado, here's Dave Schmitz. All right, Dave Schmitz, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Thanks for the invitation. I'm looking forward to speaking to your audience and yourself as well.
Thanks for being here. So I'm excited to have you on because you're a pioneer when it comes to band training. As far as I know, you were the first, if not one of the first, to introduce resistance band training outside of the rehab setting to athletes, coaches in the fitness world. I mean, this is way back in the 90s, right?
Yep, 1996 to be exact.
1996. And now you see a lot more athletes in sports using bands today. There's a video on YouTube with LeBron James doing a workout with just bands in basketball drills. And just the other day, I read that about 90% of Tom Brady's training is with resistance bands. So when I see that, I'm thinking that's because Dave Schmitz started this all. So it has come a long way. How does that make you feel when you see that?
It's pretty exciting. You know, it's a twofold. It's very exciting to see people like Tom Brady and more high-profile individuals using bands because obviously it provides bands with that much bigger of a platform and a reach. But it's also exciting because we've barely tapped into the power of training with bands. And so even though it's great, we've got a lot out there and everything's going well from a standpoint of getting exposure, you and I both know that when you walk in a gym, bands aren't the first thing that you see. And so that I want to change that, and I'm going to continue to change that, but I definitely think we're going in the right direction.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely in the commercial gym setting when I work out, and I do not see pretty much anyone using resistance bands correctly, for that matter, let alone using it at all. So, yeah, that's
Exactly.
true. Oh, so you said 1996. So I found out about you back in like 2008. So I came a little late, I guess. But you were doing things with resistance bands that I had never seen before. I was blown away by it. And here you are, still coaching, still teaching, haven't slowed down a bit. So for those who don't know you, tell us your story. I read that you started off as a physical therapist. So how did that lead to resistance band training?
Well, when I was a physical therapist, one of the things I struggled with was teaching people how to move. And my approach to physical therapy is a little different than some people. Some people like to use their hands to work with people. I was much more into using my eyes and watching people move and then tweaking their movement patterns to start rehabilitating their injury. And I use my hands as well, but I would always use my hands while somebody was moving to mobilize or to maybe stretch something a little more aggressively. The problem was people don't move well if you tell them what to do. You have to just instinctively tweak them to go where you want them to go. And so it was something I learned from a gentleman named Gary Gray. And so I went out and found a tool that allowed me to basically teach people how to move. And we can talk about that a little bit more in depth, but the bands basically allowed me to teach people how to move. And so I started utilizing the bands and literally, Bill, my rehabilitation environment If people are familiar with it, they typically go into a rehab place, you go into a room, a therapist works with you. Well, when you went into my rehab facilities, you would walk into this big, gigantic open room, and literally there were bands hanging on the wall, and people would come in, and we would rehabilitate people in this large room with teaching them how to move and do different things within the bands. And so it was a much different environment, and I trained people outside in a big open space, and people were like, wow, what are you doing to that? Well, eventually it caught on, and people started to understand what I was trying to do. That was the rehab part of it. It taught me a lot about how to teach people how to move. So then common sense kicked in, and I said, well, wait a minute. If I can teach somebody how to rehabilitate their body and move correctly, why can't we teach them how to correct faulty movement patterns before they get injured? So I started training athletes with bands for that very reason, to eliminate injuries. Well, from there, it just escalated into the adult fitness sector. And so now what we have is what we call a Band Strong program, where we can teach people how to use bands to not only just get stronger and look and feel better and move better, but it can provide them potentially the option of getting rid of a lot of those nagging injuries that we all kind of get as we grow older, because of joint changes and muscle changes and stuff like that. So if you follow me, it went from rehab to performance training and then into fitness training, so that the goal was to eliminate the rehab part of it. I didn't want people getting hurt. I wanted people to stay healthy. And if we could catch them early by training them in bands, we were able to do that. And so interesting enough now, I still work as a therapist, but very, very minimally. I just see people privately, because I feel like we have now taken rehab and put it as the third alternative versus the first alternative. Fitness, conditioning, and if you want to get to be an athlete, performance training, we can do all of that first, and hopefully you never have to worry about rehabilitation.
Okay, so every training tool has its advantages.
Yep.
And specific impact on the body. So what are some of the benefits or advantages of using resistance band training?
Well, obviously the portability and the ability to create an unlimited resistance with that lightweight portability is what people see the most. But if I can take a minute to just talk about the three biggest advantages to band training, I'd rather talk about these. And these three. Number one, our body is built on being able to handle momentum. And so what I mean by that, Bill, is when people start moving around, they start lifting boxes, they start sprinting, they start doing day-to-day functions. It's their body's momentum that ultimately gets them in trouble because they can't slow down. Well, band training, because it has an ascending resistance, a resistance that gets harder the further you go into the range of motion, we can use that to speed up momentum or slow down momentum. So now if I want somebody to learn how to, I want them to learn how to lunge, just do a simple lunge, I can have that lunge be an assisted lunge where I slow the momentum down and they learn how to control their body and do the lunge well. Therefore, they don't beat up their joints, and they are successful at learning how to function in a lunge. Well, a lunge leads to a walk leads to a run, and now we got the person learning how to handle momentum very well. That's the first advantage. The second advantage is gravity is our nemesis all day long. So all day long, we are working against gravity. We're sitting in a chair, we got to stand up. We got to walk down the street to go to work. We got to do, if you're a laborer, you're on your feet, lifting, pushing. Everything is against gravity. Well, bands are non-gravity dependent. So now we can start training the body to get stronger, faster, more agile, more balanced, more coordinated, but we don't have to use gravity as the means of strength training it. So now our joints love it because we're not hammering our joints with gravity-based training all day long, which it gets just simply because of what we have to do. So we can assist gravity. We can slow down gravity. We can adjust gravity, which is really a big thing when it comes to long-term strength training and keeping our bodies healthy and moving well. The third and final thing is our body is designed around walking. So walking is what we were structurally set up to do. Yet very few strength training programs that I see utilize the concept of walking to strength train your body. So with bands, because they're lightweight and they're not gravity dependent, I can teach people to get stronger using the movement patterns of walking. Things like just having them do walking with the resistance on the band, having them do any variation of walking that you want, crawling, jumping, hopping, skipping, sprinting, backwards walking, sideways walking, anything I want. I can teach them how to strength train their body using the exact blueprint that it was designed around, which is walking. So I know those are advantages that people are saying, well, those aren't what I was expecting them to say. But that's the gist of why band training is so exciting, because you can't do that stuff with gravity-dependent free weights. So, that's the biggest advantages. Like I said, portability and unlimited resistance and being able to train anywhere, anytime, performing any movement. Those are all great advantages. But it's these three advantages that I just talked about that, to me, get really exciting and why people do so well with resistance band training.
Gotcha. That's fantastic. And you mentioned ascending resistance. So can you talk about how the resistance band is different than a dead weight like a dumbbell?
Sure. It's very simple. With a free weight, when you pick that free weight up, and I don't care what the free weight is, the resistance is going to stay the same from the time you pick it up to the time you lift it. What's different is, and why you experience a challenge, is the lever arm that you're using to lift that weight is changing. Okay, so the weight stays the same. There's no change in it. Therefore, there can't be any influence on speed and so forth. You can try to lift a weight faster, but essentially you're not going to move it that much faster. Now let's go to an ascending resistance. An ascending resistance in a band means that the resistance is going to be easier when you first start the movement, and it's going to be harder to finish the movement. So let's take a simple overhead press. Okay, so take a dumbbell, put it in your hand, press it over your head. Weight stays the same from the beginning to the end. Let's take a band, put it in your hand, press it overhead. As you begin to press it, it's going to be easy, and you're going to start out okay. But all of a sudden, you're going to realize as you get closer and closer to the end of the range, wow, this is really getting harder. And because I didn't start fast enough at the beginning, I can't finish the movement because the resistance is too difficult at the end. An ascending resistance will create that effect. Now, here's the beauty of an ascending resistance. If you know that the movement is going to get harder as you push further into the range of motion. So if I know that as I push my hand over my head, that resistance is going to get harder, what are you going to do mentally to prepare yourself to finish the movement? You're going to try to accelerate the force or accelerate the movement at the beginning so that you can finish. It's the same thing you would do if you were sprinting and you said, okay, I want to finish strong, so I'm going to accelerate out and run as fast as I can to get to the finish line as quick as I can. What you're basically teaching your body, and what we can teach our adults and our clients, because we have that ascending resistance, they learn how to generate power. They learn how to generate movement, accelerate force, and accelerate that resistance quickly so they can finish. Well, that's power. And life is all about power. Everything we do, Bill, every movement we make during the day is a power movement. When you stand up, if you're sitting in a chair right now and you stand up, you're not going to stand up slow and gradual. You're going to explode up off that chair to go to wherever you want. So literally everything we do is power. Bands train power automatically because you're using an ascending resistance that gets harder the further you have to push. So mentally you say, hey, I got to go. So you push hard, get some momentum going so you can finish. And that's exactly how you want to train your body for power.
Right, and that's a great point because as we age, power is definitely one of the first things to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. Exactly right. You're absolutely right. And that's a great response because that's exactly the truth. Yep. We lose power.
So one of the difficulties with people using bands is that there's no label on it. Meaning, when they see a dumbbell, it tells them how much weight is on it. But with
Yeah.
bands, they have no idea how much resistance they're getting out of it. So, how
Yep.
does one choose the right band for them and for which exercises?
Great question. If there's a downfall with band training from a strength training perspective, it's being able to measure the amount of resistance you're lifting. And I'm not going to try to create some kind of fictitious, way around that. The fact of the matter is, you're not going to be able to measure how much resistance you're creating, but you will be able to measure the effort that you're creating to lift that weight. And so your question was, how do we choose a band that fits our strength needs? Well, the beauty of elastic resistance is all the bands have about a 40-pound variability, which means that depending on your initial stretch, your initial starting tension, you're going to be able to manipulate that resistance about 40 pounds. So if you have a band that goes from 25 to 60 pounds, let's just say, and you're training with it and you say, wow, that's pretty easy. I can handle more resistance. Well, very quickly you just reset your starting tension and now you're pushing with a greater resistance. So you don't really have to get too concerned about which band you have because you have a 40-pound variability. So even though you have a band that may generate up to 70 pounds of resistance and you say, well, I can't overhead press 70 pounds. Well, don't worry about it because you're going to probably be starting at 25. You're only going to get to 50 because you still have another yard or so of stretch left in the band that you could use if you wanted to. So the beauty again goes back to with bands, you have the ability to quickly modify the resistance based on your energy levels that day. And Bill, some days you go into the gym and you pick up that 30-pound dumbbell that you lift every day to put over, to do push presses with. And oh my God, today it's like, I can't even get this thing over my head three
Yep.
times.
Yep.
Well, with band training, no problem. Modify the resistance a little bit by putting a little less stretch on the band to start out with, and you just knock it out. And so, or on the flip side of it, you say, I got a lot of energy today. This 30-pound dumbbell feels like 10. Cool. Just stretch your band out a little bit. It's the same band. Stretch it out a little further, and now you can generate 40 or 50 pounds of resistance instantly because the band provides you that opportunity. You don't have to go get another dumbbell or another free weight. So that's how people, when they train with bands, as long as they respect the ability of how far that band can stretch, we're in great shape because you can literally increase your resistance on the fly if your energy is high that day, or decrease if you're struggling that day. And to me, that's the essence of band training, because the key to the results is pushing our body as hard as we can that day at that particular time. And with free weights, you're locked into one weight. But with bands, you have a 40-pound variability, so you can push yourself if your body is saying, let's go. So I hope that makes some sense in how band training works. But if you're looking to measure how strong you are, we're always going to have to revert back to a free weight or a dead weight to measure that strength. What's really cool, Bill, is people that train with band resistance and then they go back to, for whatever reason, they go back and do their squat that day or do their bench press or their push press, they find their strength goes way up or increases, and they aren't even using weights. And the reason behind that, I feel, is they're learning how to generate power using the ascending resistance we talked about. And as a result of that, now when they get under that free weight, they lift it with power and they can generate more force because they're lifting, their muscles are firing quicker, recruiting quicker, and now all of a sudden they can lift a heavier weight because they've learned how to lift the weight and they're not just lifting the weight.
Right. No, that's an excellent point. So there's a lot of different types of bands out there. You got two bands, flat bands, ones with handles, ones without. So what are the pros and cons of these different types of bands?
Yeah, good. Another great question. You've done your homework, Bill. I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. There are two distinct types of elastic resistance. There are tubular and there are flat resistance bands. And people sometimes think of TheraBand. TheraBand is a rehab tool. We're not going to refer to that, but that's another form. So there's tubular and there's flat. Okay, the difference, and what I feel is the biggest difference between the two is this. Tubular bands are going to be round. As a result of that, when it comes to attaching them onto your body or using them to hook around your hips or to do different types of exercises like that where the band is hooked to your body, it's going to be round. Therefore, it's going to migrate or move on your body if you try to do that. So as a result of that, you need extra belts, straps, and those types of things to hook on your body first to then hook the band to that. A flat band, a continuous flat band, is flat, so it quickly adheres to your body. Therefore, you can attach it directly to your body without any straps, belts, or anything like that. And you can go ahead and grab it because it's flat, so it sits in your hand and it adheres to your hand very well. So as a result of that, to me, a flat band is far more versatile than a tubular band for that distinct reason. Now, there are differences in flat bands. There are molded flat bands and there are layered flat bands. Molded flat bands are where they just simply take a bunch of liquid latex, pour it into a mold, let it harden, pull it out, and you have a band. A layered band is where they have big spindles and they continually use thin layers of latex, wrap it around the spindle until you get the thickness of a band that you want, and then they go ahead and clip off the layer. And in our case, we weld that last layer down onto the band to avoid it from peeling back. And as a result of that, now you have a layered band versus a molded band. Why do you want layered? Because a layered band creates a matrix effect that makes the band 300 times stronger than a molded band. A molded band is nothing more than rubber being stretched, and if it's not bonded together in layers, it can very easily break. It also, based on the mold and the liquid, you can create what's called tension points. And tension points in a molded band is where it's more dense at some point in the band and less dense in other areas. So as you're working with this band, you're stretching it, and all of a sudden you hit one of these tension points, and the resistance goes from 5 to 40 pounds instantly, and it jars your body.
Wow.
In a layered band, because it's layered, it's far more consistent. You don't have these tension points, and the flow of resistance or the build-up resistance is much more gradual and consistent. Therefore, as you exercise with it, there's no abrupt changes in the resistance as you train. And that's important from an injury standpoint, because it would be like me taking a dumbbell or taking a barbell. You start lifting it, and about midway through your lift, I throw 30 more pounds on the bar instantly. And you were so jarred because all of a sudden this weight got 30 pounds heavier. You can imagine how your joints would be traumatized by that. So that's the difference between tubular and flat, and molded flat and layered flat. And those are basically so ultimately what you're looking for in the most efficient, versatile, elastic tool is to go with layered, continuous loop bands, because you can do everything with them and you have the most durable tool available.
Right. And I think on your website, you actually have attachments that you can actually put on it as well, right?
Yes, exactly. So if you want training handles, you can attach them on. The reason we don't have them permanently attached is because you'll see how we use the band by itself. And if it had all these handles and straps hooked to it permanently, they would get in the way of training. Simplicity is important. And it's one of the benefits of training with continuous loop bands is simplicity. Having handles and straps and belts and all that hooked to them would make them much more cumbersome, much more difficult to transport, much more difficult to use. And that's one of the beauties of it too, is I just like the simplicity of training with elastic resistance as well, especially continuous loop bands.
Right. And, you know, a lot of people, they just don't know what exercises that they can do with these bands. So can you kind of go through, you know, the versatility of this band and what you can do? Because on your website, you can do it for conditioning. You can do it for more like bodybuilding type of workouts. Can you just kind of take them through that?
Yeah. Well, and probably one of the negatives of band training is its versatility, because you can do everything with it. So we can go through, if you want to work on flexibility training, there's a complete flexibility training routine that you can put your hips and shoulders through to improve flexibility of your body. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people could use bands for to start out with. From a strength training standpoint, you can simulate any movement that you would simulate with free weights. However, the cool thing about it is, because of the elasticity of bands and the ability to manipulate the movement, if you have limitations in certain movements and you have to modify the movement, typically with a band you can do that. But with a free weight, you have to follow the plane of movement that the free weight makes you go through. So you can use bands from a strength training standpoint, a flexibility standpoint, and you can use them as in performance enhancement for speed development and power development if you choose to. What exercises to start with? Where to start? If I was going to take a continuous loop band, what would Dave recommend I start with? Number one thing I would start with is, on our site, we have a manual called the Attachment-Free Single Band Training 2.0. What that teaches you is how to use one band to do a complete upper, lower body workout, core stabilization workout, everything you want from a strength training standpoint. That's a great place to start, because if you can use one band and strength train your entire body, well, now you can do a workout anywhere. And I think that for a lot of people, especially your population of people where time is important because they're pushed for time due to busy schedules, work, career, so forth, a single band training workout would be perfect for so many people, because they could get the workout in and get a lot accomplished in a short period of time.
And Dave, that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get you on this show, because time is definitely an issue for a lot of people. It's a limited resource. So band training is a great option that will save people time.
Right. And you're still, don't mark it wrong, you're still going to get an aggressive, highly challenging workout that's going to build your strength, your muscle mass, and everything that you would get with the free weight training. But the beauty is, you can take that band, put it in your briefcase, put it in your backpack, and have it with you. So if time is an issue, it's typically not that it's time that's the issue, it's the ability to be convenient so they can train anywhere they want. So if they're at the office and they want to just go, to an open room and get a quick workout in, they can. I think more so than time, it's the ability to have a workout that's convenient for you to get in when your schedule doesn't necessarily allow you to go to the gym or transport yourself or to a place where you have to work out. I think the convenient part of it is huge.
Absolutely. Convenience is definitely key. What are some of the most common mistakes you see people using with resistance bands?
Number one is they treat it like a dumbbell, Bill. They think that if I take one band that can generate resistance from 5 to 25 pounds of resistance or force, well, if I just stretch the band further and further and further, I'll get more resistance out of it. This is true, but it's still a band, and it still has its length tension tolerances, meaning a band can only be stretched so far, and ultimately it will break. So the number one mistake I see people do, and I don't think they do it purposely. I think they do it because they're training hard, they want more resistance, they're trying to push themselves, and so as a result that they just naturally stretch the band further and further out to try to keep pushing themselves, and they kind of lose perspective on how far they're stretching it. And as a result, the band gets tethered, and it starts to get broken down, and it ultimately tears. That's the number one mistake that people have. So that's why I say they treat it like a dumbbell, because a dumbbell you can throw around, do whatever you want with it. It's not going to break. So that's the biggest mistake. And then the other mistake that people make is simply trying to use a band to simulate machine-based training or free weight training. And they just try to simulate the same thing. And it's like, you don't need to do that. Just follow the band training exercises that we show you, and you'll be much better off. So that's kind of a second mistake they make. And then the third mistake I would say is they just don't necessarily learn the movements and all the exercises well. And so as a result of that, their hand positions, how they attach the band to their body isn't always correct. Therefore, it becomes annoying, and they get a little bit upset. I mean, people get upset. They say, well, it bothers me. Well, you have to learn how to place the band onto your body so that you can get the maximum benefit and the maximum comfort of training with the bands.
Right, right. A lot of people are familiar with doing sets based on repetition ranges. Like, you tell someone to do 3 sets of 10 reps. Everyone knows what that is. But can you talk about how time-based work sets are effective for band training and how you would use it?
Oh, man. Time-based work sets are the best. And the reason they're the best is because, Bill, you can focus on effort versus counting. And I think the biggest place that we can get, or the fastest way we can get results, and is based on our effort. If you come into a gym and you watch people work, you can quickly see that the person that's working the hardest is probably the one that probably looks the best and seems to be getting the most results from their training. It's not the weight they're lifting. It's not even the exercise they're doing. It's the effort they're giving when they're training with that tool. When you do time-based sets, all I want you to do is focus on effort. Give me effort. And as long as you understand the movement quality. The other thing is, if you are learning a new movement, by doing time-based sets, it allows you to focus on, hey, I just want to make sure I'm doing the movement correctly. You don't have to sit there and count how many reps you did with that specific movement. So I think it allows you, number one, time-based sets to focus on effort versus counting. And it also allows you to tempo your sets when it comes to learning. The last thing that time-based sets do is it eliminates thinking. All you have to do is exercise for 30 seconds, rest for 15, or exercise for 40, rest for 20. So it keeps your rest consistent, which a lot of people change as they get tired. They change their rest periods because they want more rest. That's where you lose your effect. So time-based sets keeps your work to rest ratios the same. And therefore, if you stick to it, you're going to get great results, because it's the rest that makes the difference, not the amount of time you're working. So if you're resting the same every time and you're working the same every time, you're going to get great results. And so I think time-based sets just put people in a much better perspective or better environment to get what they need out of the exercise, which is effort and consistency of work to rest ratios, so that they don't, lose the effect that comes with those two things.
And do you have a favorite app that you use to track these time-based workouts?
I do. I use an app called Seconds Pro. I like it a lot for 2 reasons. Number one, it has great versatility. You can set up almost any type of workout you want. But number 2, you can save the workout, name it, and not only can you then just quickly repeat it by just clicking that and clicking on that workout and going, but I can actually email you the workout that I did to your Seconds Pro, and you can have the same workout, which is pretty cool. And so we're starting to do that a little bit with the RBT, in that as I create workouts, I put them into the Seconds Pro. So ultimately, I'm hoping over time we can start emailing them to people once they have the app.
Great stuff. The last question I have for you is, for the people listening, is there anything that you would like them to consider? Any parting words of wisdom?
All I would like them to consider is elastic training. And if they're struggling with traditional strength-based training using free weights, that they give elastic training an opportunity. And if they need to learn, man, come to resistancebandtraining.com and just look at the site. There's tons of ways to learn about it there. But give elastic training a try, because to me, it's the link between strength training our body with free weights and transferring that to what we enjoy doing every day. And I don't think just free weight training transfers directly into what we enjoy doing every day. But if you add resistance band training into your workout, I think you're going to see that bridges the gap between getting your body just gravity strong and getting your body functionally strong to handle what you enjoy doing every day, which is hanging out with your kids, playing in the driveway with your kids, going for walks, going for runs, doing recreational sports that you enjoy doing. I think elastic resistance bridges the gap between strength training with weights and those activities. And if you can do it, it's going to allow you to stay doing those activities for a very, very, very long time.
Dave, great stuff. The website, again, is resistancebandtraining.com. In my opinion, it's the ultimate resource for everything to do with bands. He has links to his YouTube channel, which is phenomenal, and he has links to his social media there where you can get in contact with him to learn more. Dave, is there anything else? Do you want to add? Anything, anywhere else they can get in contact with you?
No, that's the best place to go. I answer all my own correspondence with customers and people that email me. So if you go to resistancebandtraining.com and you go to our question area and you submit a question, guess who's going to answer it for you? Me. I'm going to answer it for you, so you're going to hear directly from me, which I think is pretty unusual this day and age with online marketing and online sales and so forth. So please come in, visit the site, and shoot me a question. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what your questions are, and more importantly, just start interacting with you to help you get better with bands.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave.
Hey, thank you, Bill.
There you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Dave as much as I did. Everything we talked about is in the show notes, so check it out at anchorsofhealth.com/episode 2. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.